In 2020, I remember when the first outbreak started, and I remember my shift for 10 to 6 did not show up. I had a very interesting time in retaining the staff. And one of the things is the communication that I noticed that was not as effective. It did not go across the board from our morning shift and our night shift. Once I was able to do a phone call with all of my staff, they felt a little better. They was able to talk about their fears. They was able to talk about different categories. I let them have the floor. And once we were able to have that communication, my retention for that building was better. Even in that communication, just having that appreciation. Now, appreciation can look very different. It's not just about pizza. It's not about just sending food, leftovers for the 10 to 6 shift. It's literally trying to get to know your staff, no matter who they are, whether it's housekeeping, CNAs, dietary aides. They're very, very important roles. And if they don't show up, you will know it. You will feel it as an administrator. So being able to know each of them, knowing that they may like Pokemon or maybe they like different small things, and being able to say, hey, I know that's your daughter's birthday today. And just saying that they feel like they're part of the team, because they are part of the team. If you don't communicate effectively to them, they will hear from other people. And when they hear from other people, it may not be translated well to the other person. So being able to communicate effectively directly to your staff on all shifts and being able to appreciate them has benefited staff retention for the long-term care industry for my building.
We have done well with keeping our staff because we maintain almost a family-like environment in the facility. All the department managers get along and support each other. Nobody is kind of left hanging in the wind. If somebody's struggling, somebody always jumps in and helps. And that filters down through every layer of the organization. And they see that nobody gets left without help. And so they feel like it's a good place to work, it's a safe place to work, and that everybody cares for everybody. And that goes a long way. You mentioned the COVID outbreak. It makes me think of when COVID hit my building as well. You know, it wasn't just the administrative staff saying, gosh, this is bad, there's a lot to do. You know, we were out there on the floor, physically moving residents around, moving furniture, packing things, basically making everything happen in terms of the logistic operation of setting up a COVID unit, instead of passing it on to the CNAs and housekeeping and things like that, because their job doesn't stop. They still have residents to care for, whether they're being moved or whether they're going into an isolation unit, coming out of an isolation unit. No, y'all do what you do best, and we're gonna make this happen. We're all in this together, and we need you to keep doing what you're doing. When they see people jumping in and doing things, that's a motivating factor as well.
If they see administrative staff being in their office and just giving directives, it's not a time for that. You have to get out there on that floor, because how do you know what their fears are? And don't minimize their fears. And whether you feel like it is logical or not, just being that servant leader, being able to understand and being put in their shoes, because they're working directly with the residents. And when I had to hit the floor, I was able to converse with them and let them know what my fears are. I was able to personalize it. And I agree definitely with Kevin on this, being able to move residents yourself, because you want to be able to kind of talk to them and be like, yes, this is difficult work. Again, not minimizing what their fears are, what their frustrations are, and how they're tired.
Just putting that human touch on it makes a big difference. Yes, I hear you. I see what your fears are, your concerns, and I'm listening to them. And this is what we can do about that. This is what's in place. This is the procedure, and we can alleviate those fears. Also, just being accessible to everybody. My staff knows, hey, if you're having a bad day, you can come in my office, shut the door, scream at me, whatever you need to do, and it's going to stay in this office. But if you need to release that pressure, you can. and we'll talk through it, we'll talk about it, we'll figure out what's wrong and how we can fix it.
Diversity and inclusion is such an important topic. I am a part of the diversity education committee because sometimes there is situations where not many people have grew up around a certain population or have their own bias about a certain population, whether it's race, whether it's religion, whether it's sexual orientation. They may have their bias due to lack of knowing about it. So my commitment here at Nexion is to make sure that we educate and educate about different things. We had a segment last year about Black hair. There's a lot of misconception. There's a lot of information that others did not know that affected African American women who decide, or African American men who decide to have dreads and they can't get a job because of just their hair. I do want to give you an example why diversity and inclusion is an important topic, because you as the future administrator may have to get a smaller building. You may not be in a big city town, right? And in that, I know Kevin is knowing exactly what I'm talking about. You may not be in that big city where the applicants, where maybe it may be more diverse. But when you're in those small towns, no offense to anybody, but when you're in a smaller town, the diversity may not be where it needs to be, or it may be some tension that is there. And you have to recognize that tension. And it could be racial tension. It could be someone who is transgender that may be picked on. And that's not just for your staff. It could be for your residents too. We have a slew of individuals that are trying to work together, who are trying to be taken care of. With diversity and inclusion, you have to educate yourself, because you may have your own bias that you may not be aware of. Or you may say certain things that maybe the other person may chuckle at it, but it harbored in them. And they're like, they actually hurt my feelings, but you as an administrator, they feel like they can't say anything. So make sure you educate yourself and educate your staff very tactfully. You want to make sure that when there is some type of tension, whether it's racial tension, whatever that is, you want to approach it. Don't ignore it. Because you as the administrator, the more you ignore anything that goes on in your building, it will fester, it will harbor, and that is key.
I sit on the peer advisory group, and what we do is whenever a situation comes up in one of the facilities, whether it is related to an employee or a resident, something comes up related to one of those categories, whether it's race, religion, sexual orientation, something of that nature, they'll send the situation over to our group and we'll talk about it. And our group is made up of people from all different levels of the organization. There's administrators, there's regional directors, there's CNAs, nurses, we have dietary employees, van drivers, just a nice cross section of everybody in the company is represented in that group. And we'll talk about the situation, and we will make recommendations on how to resolve the situation, how to heal the facility from whatever tension or problem has come up. We'll make recommendations on how to prevent it from happening again, whether that's education that needs to occur, whether it's people need to sit down and talk it out, or maybe some accommodations need to be made for one person or a group of people. Whatever it is that's going to solve the situation, we try to figure that out from a peer perspective versus just let's look at the HR policies, let's say what needs to be done in terms of discipline. No, let's talk about it. Let's get to the root of this problem and let's solve it, and let's make sure it doesn't happen again, so that everybody is comfortable either coming to work or living in our building. You want every single human being that you can possibly get to come to work and feel comfortable working here and want to stay here because you value them and you love them for their individual properties. It's not just we need you to come to work, so come to work. No, we see what makes you special. We value that, we honor it, and we respect that, and we promote it.
Just imagine as an administrator and people are coming into your office and saying how short staffed you all are. Your overtime is through the roof. And come to find out, you look in your system, there are certain people they're not even interviewing because of their last name. Or they may interview them and immediately just be like, okay, we're not going to do this because I can see certain characteristics in them that are biased versus skill level. As an administrator, you want to make sure that is not going on, because I guarantee you, if someone has a bias, they rather be short, putting you guys in a very, very uncomfortable position in your facility just to not hire a certain class of individuals. So you want to be intuitive and see if there is a trend. Not saying that it happens a lot or happens, too little. I just want to make sure that to let you know that it does happen. You as the administrator is not the only person hiring staff. You have your managers hiring staff. It can be your DON, it can be your ADON, and they may not say it around you, but they may be saying it to themselves and they may be saying it to other people. Randomly look into those things and make sure that there's not a trend or a pattern, or even start going to their interviews, because you never know what may be happening and what was their reasoning of not hiring that person aside from skill.
Reach out to HR and the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force. That's what we're here for. We can absolutely help combat bias in your building, whether it's the peer advisory group looking at a specific situation, making recommendations, or if it is the education group coming up with topics and material that would be needed to alleviate this situation.
If in a situation that you may see a pattern or trend of bias in your workplace, you want to just ask questions to specific people. You can also do surveys, because once you do that and you do see a trend, you want to talk to your staff. You can talk to them one-on-one and say, this is what I found during my survey that I've done. I've noticed that we may need to work on XYZ. And then from there, as any other leader, administrator, you want to monitor and see if this is continual, and of course address it. You want to address it head on. Again, do not ignore what you see. Do not ignore what you find out. If your eyes are wide open and they know your eyes are wide open with it, then they will be a little bit more careful if they are doing anything that is of bias in the building.
We have a very effective application process. And when you log into the system, you can see every single application that has come in since the last time you checked. And it gives you the ability to text through the system. And as soon as somebody shows up, we send them a text. Hey, this is Kevin from New Iberia Manor South. We're very interested in talking to you about the CNA position that you applied for. The text system has turned out to be worth its weight in gold, because sometimes people are still working at a current job. They can't answer the phone, but that text message is there. And when they take a break, when they get off work, they can still respond to it. It's not a missed call. They have to call and try and get somebody who may have already left for the day, or maybe is busy doing something else. And you can kind of keep that conversation going along lines that fit with their schedule. And that shows that you're interested. That shows that you're engaged. They respond very well. They respond very quickly. It's just moving into the new generation of people entering the workforce and adapting to the means of communication that is comfortable to them. After we text them and we get a response, I will immediately set them up with an interview. Hey, what time can you come in? That's great. Come on, we'll set you up with an interview as soon as you get here. And then we make somebody available for that interview. Everybody's busy all the time in a nursing home, especially in this day and age with the pandemic and staffing problems that we have. But that has to be made a priority, because if you don't hire and staff the building, you will always be short staffed, and everybody's going to continue to run around being crazy, not having time to do anything. So make time. If somebody shows up at the door saying, "Hey, I saw this job posting that you had, and I was curious about it. Great. Let's go into the office and do an interview right now. Let's do it on the spot. Let's get you engaged. Let's see what this is about, and show you that we want you here and that we are willing to do what we have to do to get you onboarded. Be aggressive, get on top of it, and do it as quickly as humanly possible. And show them that you care. Ask engaging questions, you know, be warm, make sure that other people in the building greet them with a smile, which, you know, it's hard to smile with a mask on right now, but you can still smile with your eyes. People can tell when you're doing it. Say hello, good morning, good afternoon. Encourage your staff that's in the building right now to do that same thing, because when they walk through the building, they want to see, oh, everybody here is happy. They don't look stressed out. They're going to talk to me and not, oh, this person's coming for my job. They're grumpy. They're stressed out. I don't want to work in a negative environment. But if they're looking at me, they're engaging me, they're saying hi, they're saying good morning, they say, oh, this is a happy place. People enjoy working here. Maybe I'll enjoy working here. I should take this seriously.
A lot of times, like when individuals are in school, they'll apply for certain jobs. And being flexible really, really helps them. So let's say if you are on, this is a nurse that's going through school, you want to be flexible. And if you have like a hospitality aide position that's open, you never know. They might want to come on board and be a hospitality aide while they're in school. Then the next thing, when they're graduating, they have a job waiting for them if the position is open. So being flexible is really, really helpful in your effective recruiting and interviewing individuals because you want to know what their pathway is. When I had a future nurse, they did not have the ability to work while in school. So what I end up doing is, like Kevin was mentioning, the texting. Um, I had set an alarm on my phone. So when she graduated, I went back and said, "Congratulations on your pinning ceremony," and she really, really appreciated that. What I notice is when I have a formal introduction via like an email or a text, I don't get a response as quickly. But as soon as I'm like, "Hey, my name is Kendra," I'm just enough informal, but just enough formal so they can know who it is to not sound like a bot, because a lot of times bots are messaging people. Sometimes there is um, unsolicited calls that people get quite often, the spam risk that you may see, and you want to set yourself aside from that. And when I just say, "Hello, this is Kendra, I'm the administrator at XYZ," they literally text me seconds later because they feel like that human connection, like, "Hey, my name is this." I do see a trend in being just enough informal so that they can know that, hey, we are interested in you. I am a real person and I do want to interview you. So I do get really good responses from that. I have gotten actually more responses from texting an individual versus emailing someone. Very seldomly, I might get a email. A lot of times, people are doing everything from their phone. I say people, I do everything from my phone as well. So just imagine, like, I honestly rather get a text personally than a phone call. But if someone texts you, you already know who it is because they introduce themselves and they let you know like what they're needing from there. So more often people are looking at their text messages versus their email versus a phone call. You want to keep up with the trends as an administrator. Hey, if you create a TikTok, you may get more applicants through there. So I just want to encourage you as an administrator to always keep up with the times as you go down the line of years and years and years of being an administrator. You don't want to be stuck where you were 5 years ago. We start using all kinds of methods to get the word out there that we are hiring. And when you do that, you do different marketing schemes for your staffing, you will see a better applicant flow versus two or three applicants in your system. And you're like, okay, what else can I do? Word of mouth is super duper important when you're recruiting individuals. So just imagine having CNAs, like I say, you have slots open for CNAs and they bring on their people. That's really good for retention. I know we kind of go back for retention. If they're bringing on someone, they're going to collectively be together, train together, and form a bond that you will see beneficial to your facility. So, recruiting via word of mouth, via new technology trends is very, very important. So, right now, you're sitting in a class full of future of administrators, right? Get each other numbers, network, because regardless of what you may or may not believe with competition, even in your competition, you want to see what are you doing is working because you want to talk, you want to see what's working.
If you're working in a small town, you may be the only one in your company for quite some distance. You may be an outpost somewhere versus having two or three facilities in town in the same company that you can share resources with. Right now, with staffing as it is, if you're applying and we think you're a good candidate, we're going to find something for you to do. We're going to make a schedule work. But in a perfect world, uh, talk to your competitors, know what they're hiring for, know what their needs are, and work with them as well. I have a good relationship with the other nursing homes here in my small town. And if I get a really good applicant, but they can only work the evening shift, and I have nothing on the evening shift, and I've got my own employees who are waiting for a spot on the evening shift, I may say, you know what, why don't you hire on here PRN? But I know my friend down the street has openings on that shift. She's a really good administrator. It's a good home. Why don't you go look at that too? I'll tell her to expect your call. And they're going to remember that the next time they're looking for a job. If they are, they're going to go, wait a minute, that guy down the road was really nice and helped me get this job. Even though he didn't have something that fit my schedule, he helped me get one. And so the next time I have something come open, they're going to remember me and they're going to come to me and be like, oh, you were the nice guy that helped me get that job. Let me see what's going on over here with your job opening. Just use the resources that you have, whether it's your own company, whether it's your peers in the immediate area, because you never know. It's a small world. Nursing homes are even smaller, and sooner or later, everybody's path is going to cross again. So be as helpful as you can, be as accommodating as you can, and eventually it will come back to you.
As much time you spend in recruiting, you want to spend as much time as hiring them and onboarding them correctly. You want to make sure that everybody is in there introducing themselves. You want to make sure that the flow is good. And you, as the administrator, you want to, because you are the abuse coordinator in most instances. So when you're the abuse coordinator, why not show your face? Because they may have to call you at 3 a.m. in the morning and let you know of an allegation of abuse. Make sure that you have orientation. Make sure you also have an avenue where they are trained effectively, whatever that may be. And it could be your managers, your social worker, your HR payroll person, it could be your business office manager, as well as your CNAs, your housekeeper. Don't just throw them and baptize them by fire. That does not always work. You want them to be trained. You want them to be able to fly like a butterfly. Within that first 30 days, the first 14 days, you want to make sure they're doing okay. And their 90 days and up to a year, you want to make sure that you are having really good hiring practices so that once you get one spot filled, it continues on and on. Then pretty soon you'll know it. You'll be working with the same team for quite some time, going through growing pains, versus continuing to have a big slew of people coming in every 30 days because we're not retaining them and we're not effectively hiring those individuals.
When we onboard somebody, whether it is myself or their direct supervisor, I always like to encourage a sit down conversation that says, where do you want to go from here? What do you see yourself doing? If you love your position and that's all you want to do for the rest of your life, that is great. We're happy to help you do that. If you want to move up, we are happy to help you do that too with whatever we can. Whether it is encouraging them to serve on committees, whether it's the safety committee or the QA committee or something like that, something to get them more involved in the facility and help them to expand their skills, maybe cross train in another department, uh, give them extra responsibilities in preparation of possibly moving up into a supervisory position, something that's going to help them feel value added and that you trust them and that they can learn from. so they can sharpen their skills and they will be poised to take that next step when it becomes available. If you have somebody in school who maybe they're a CNA and they want to become a nurse, talk to them, say, hey, what are your plans after you graduate? Because I've always been the type of person, like, once you move to that next level in your education, we're going to find something for you to do here that uses those skills. If you're going for your nursing degree, you have a job here as a nurse when you graduate. We want to keep you. We want you to stay in the family. So we'll find a place in the schedule. I mean, I've even had to make positions for people sometimes to retain them. But these are all things that you can do to encourage their growth and support that. If they're going to school for something that maybe not necessarily related, still ask them about it, still encourage them. If they have projects that they have to do that can be done here at work, allow them to do that. I've been interviewed for countless things for school projects because they need an administrator, they need somebody in supervisory or a leadership position. Uh, just last week, one of my people is going to school for social work, and she had a project to do on this new theory of leadership. So she came with a list of questions prepared and asked me all the questions, and I was more than happy to let her record it so that she could go back and listen to my answers again and incorporate that into her research. And she was tickled pink to do that. So anything that you can do to make their lives easier with education, with personal growth, do that, because it's going to come back to you. When they see that you're invested and that you want them to grow as a person and you're making allowances to do that, they're much more likely to stay and continue working in that new position because, hey, this company allowed me to do this. They worked with my schedule, they worked with my training, they let me take a leave to go do clinicals because I couldn't do it here for whatever reason. Whatever happens, they come back and they stay because the company helped them grow and you helped them grow as a leader. And they see, okay, I've hitched my wagon to this administrator and they're helping me grow. This is a good place to be because I can go to school, I can get a new degree, I can move up, I have opportunities, and I'm not always stuck in this one role.
I know that you all are sitting in a seat right now, and you guys, as future administrators, want to move into a different direction in your career. Regardless if you are that social worker that was in a nursing home and now you're becoming an administrator, regardless if you're in a totally different industry right now and now you want to contribute. But just imagine you did not have that support to be sitting in the seat right now. Imagine feeling stuck. You don't feel like your capacity is being utilized. Becoming a future administrator and my priority for other people is I want to be able to be that vessel for people to be able to move in a direction they want to move into. I don't want to ever be in a situation where I am hindering that for that other person. Being a CNA is a career. Being a social worker is a career. Being a dietary manager is a career. And it's okay to stay in that position if they want to do that. It's very much okay. But then you have certain individuals that feel like I want to move into a different direction. My priority is to make sure that I am of resource. I did commit to being a preceptor for long-term care. And that's one of my biggest things because somebody did it for me. And I always had that in the back of my head. Somebody did that for me. My bosses has always looked at what do I need so that you can grow? So that because my priorities was going to school. Even right now to this day, I have a wonderful support system with Nexion. I am getting my doctorate degree, and that means so much to me that they are invested in my future, and I am going to give that back. That is my priority as well, is giving that back, because when you have a vision and there is a system where it's being blocked, that doesn't put you in a good place as a person who is a visionary. But if you are a visionary and you have people in your corner, regardless if they know you or don't know you, you have somebody in your corner, helping you, aid you toward whether it's a smallest thing or a huge thing, You want to be that vessel. I encourage you to be that vessel for someone else, regardless of what level that is on, whether it's a hospitality aide going to CNA, because we do have a lot of TNA students, uh, which is a temporary nurse aide. So temporary nurse aides going into their CNA, just celebrating them, getting that certification, just like I would like to celebrate you all once you get licensed as a nursing home administrator. That is a great venue. And no matter, you may not know me, but I am in support of that. And you will become a part of a support system with other long-term care administrators, and you'll see the Facebook groups that we have, and you see that we're trying to move each other along in our profession and career. So that is my priority, and I believe that's other people that's around me priority as well. And just seeing people win, that's an awesome feeling.
When people share their goals with you, be receptive to that and encourage them. It may be that they want to stay with your nursing home or the company, or they may want to pivot and do something totally different and move away. And let them know that that is okay. I've had people come and say, I'm looking to move, to Texas in 6 months or a year, and that's fine. And I reassure them and let them know the job is yours until you tell me you don't want it anymore, unless you do something worthy of termination, which I hope you don't do. But you don't have to worry about me yanking the carpet out from under you because you told me you want to leave some point down the road. You're still a valued employee, you're still contributing, and we still respect you, and we want you to be happy here as long as you want to be here. And the fact that your life is going to take you in a different direction is fine. We support that, and we're going to encourage that because that's what's going to make you the happiest and the most productive. And sometimes those plans change and the person says, you know what, it fell through, we're not moving away, we're going to stay here. Okay, the job is still yours. You do a good job every day. You're pleasant to the residents, it's still yours. Don't be mad when people want to leave your organization, because it's going to happen. It may not necessarily be something that is work related. It may be a personal issue. It may be family pulling them in another direction. It may be the biggest dream they've ever had, and they finally have the chance to go do it. That's a good thing. And the folks that stay and continue to work are going to see that you encouraged them. They're going to see that you allowed them to grow into what they wanted to be. And that's going to be value added for them too, because they're a part of this team. And maybe someday they'll have the opportunity to grow or take the chance to grow. And they'll know that you're going to support them in doing that and that you've got their back. I've been doing this for over a decade and I don't have all the answers. I don't pretend to have all the answers. I still learn something new every day. There's always a network of people, both inside the company and outside the company, that I can call and bounce ideas off of. And hey, has this ever happened to you? What did you do? How did it work out? It's wonderful to have people that share your experiences and know what you're going through, and that can give you those answers or suggestions, or, oh, I never thought of that, try this, or hey, this happened and we did this and it worked out great, why don't you try it too? Because we're all in it together. We're all going to the same destination, the same goal. We want to care for our residents, we want to do it well. So if I've got something that worked well, absolutely share that with somebody else, even if they're the competition, because it's going to benefit the residents in the long run.
Sometimes things come up and there is an increase in absenteeism, especially with COVID-19. Or there could be some instances where don't automatically assume that it's because of the facility, that's why they're absent, or it's something negative against or towards the facility. Sometimes people are in car wrecks. And just imagine, oh, she was a no call, no show, so I'm just gonna terminate her out of the system. No, actually check up on that person and see, are you okay? And they may let you know, which is not a requirement, but you want to have that human side and make sure. Just imagine you're not at the facility. Imagine your boss not even recognizing that, hey, something may have happened. A no call, no show is not necessarily, oh, I'm just walking off this job. It may be something terrible personally that has happened. And that's how you manage absenteeism. when they know and recognize that you're not there. Like some people may feel invisible. You never know. Like, why am I here anyways? But if you're calling them, checking on them, and say, hey, I noticed you were out, or you didn't call in, or you have called in the past few days. Are you okay? Once they recognize that, a lot of times they help them to kind of open up and be more vulnerable and say, hey, maybe my absenteeism needs to be corrected. And of course, some things maybe, require disciplinary action. So don't get me wrong, but sometimes things require just talking to that individual, educating that individual. Not everything goes into a disciplinary action. Being able to recognize you're not invisible. Please come to work. We value you. Is very, very important.
Kendra said something very powerful, and I want to make sure that doesn't go missed. When you call your employees because they didn't come to work, there is a huge difference in are you okay versus are you coming to work? That is a huge distinction, because the are you okay says, I'm concerned about you and I want to make sure that you're well and safe and healthy. Are you coming to work says, I need you to come to work and I don't care what's wrong. Just get here. But if you show that compassion and that side of, are you okay? And you lead with that, that's going to help them to open up, like Kendra said. And that's definitely value added, because that's showing that you care about the people that work in your nursing home versus I just want the work to get done. This is a caring profession. All we do all day is care for people. And if we can't extend that at the very beginning, we've lost. The goal is not to write people up. The goal is to have an environment where they want to come to work. However, sometimes absenteeism does warrant disciplinary action. And when it has to go there, the key is you have to be uniform and you have to be fair. If Sally gets a write-up for something related to absenteeism, you got to make sure that Susie gets the same write-up if she did the same thing. If the exact same thing happens to two different people, you got to treat them exactly the same. If one's not written up, you shouldn't write up the other one, because I guarantee you they're going to talk about it. And you don't want people saying, oh, Kevin's playing favorites, he likes this one more than me, or this one didn't get held accountable and that's why we're working short on the floor. Now, you can't tell the rest of the staff, hey, I wrote this person up. It's none of their business. You got to keep that private. But if you apply the same standards to everybody uniformly, they're going to see that and they're going to appreciate it, because as human beings, whether we admit it or not, we like structure. And that structure has to be the same for everybody. So if you do have to go to a place where you discipline people, make sure you do it uniformly, fairly, and compassionately, and it's appropriate. But before you go to that point, find out why they missed work, show them that compassion, give them that chance, give them that opportunity to say, oh, this happened to me, this is what happened, this is what's going on in my life, and be receptive to that, be sympathetic, see what you can do. If there's a way you can help the situation, do it, because again, that's going to come back to you. You're going to have a support system in your own building. Will you show compassion and you care about them? If somebody else calls in and you're working that phone list trying to find a replacement, if you're compassionate to them and you show them that kindness that they need in that position or in that situation 6 months ago, they're going to remember that. Oh, Kevin needs me. He was nice to me. I'm going to pick up that shift. I'm going to be there and support him. I'm going to be there and support my coworkers because they care about me.
Even before COVID, I am a person of second chances, because somebody gave me a second chance. One of the things that has worked for me is exhausting all measures. I want to sit as an administrator and say, have I adequately trained my staff? That's number one, because we can do this. That's easy. Disciplinary actions, that's something you can do, right? But making sure you're training and monitoring, have continual training. Did they understand that training? Was it effective? That's one thing. So I want to make sure that whatever training that I did was exhausted before I get to that correcting disciplinary actions and things of that nature. I want to make sure that I have given my employees the tools to be effective in what they're doing. And I don't want to assume Once you assume that, okay, they should know this, they've been doing this for 15 years, they should know this. And sometimes they can be doing it wrong for 15 years. So you, as the administrator, you want to make sure you give them that opportunity to educate. Because I do feel bad if I never really sit down with that person, then I'm just trying to sit down and write them up. There are some things that you do have zero tolerance on, right? But then there are some things that you want to make sure that you have effectively trained your staff. You want to know why, because even in a disciplinary action, it does ask, what was your barriers, what was going on during that time frame. And I like to know that before I get to that disciplinary action. Sometimes, again, exhausting our measures. I remember like just having that the staff having a challenging resident, and they kept on saying, "Oh, she knows what she's doing. She knows what she's doing." Well, I just want to let you guys know that that person is here for a reason. And once you exhaust like saying the same thing or doing different methods of trying to get them to understand the seriousness, sometimes it does warrant it to start putting things on paper. But a lot of times you can just do it once and they understand the seriousness of what's going on. A lot of times people say, oh, job abandonment, she's not going to ever come back anymore. However, I remember talking to that person. She wanted to come back. And I talked to that person. I said, back in 2004, yeah, 2004, you did a job abandonment. And that person had been trying to come back. She was like, well, my mom was sick and I could not put a notice in. I could not do this. So I was like, let's go ahead and take that mark off her personnel file. Let's go ahead and rehire her. Let's go ahead and see. And we was open too. So coach that person still, hey, we need a notice, not trying to minimize what you were going through, but at the end of the day, you want to have a notice of some sort. Until this day, that person is still working at that facility. Being intuitive of what's going on in your building is very, very good, and making sure that, okay, I need to make sure that I'm training the staff. And once I'm trained, I'm monitoring, I'm following up. And once all those measures exhausted, then they know what's next, unfortunately, if it continues to happen.
One of the things that I'm really passionate about with coaching and correcting and disciplining is the concept of commitment versus compliance. I want you committed to doing the right thing and not just being compliant with it because I said so. I can tell you don't wear gloves in the hallway, and that's correct. We should not have gloves on in the hallway, but I want you to understand the why behind it. If I've seen you wearing gloves in the hallway and I've talked to you about it and I see you doing it again, I'm going to sit down with you and make sure you understand why we don't do that. And when you get into the explanation of we do this because of this, a surveyor is going to assume that your gloves are contaminated because if you're putting on gloves, you're doing something that is potentially infectious or contaminated. And when you walk out of the room, everything that you touch is now contaminated. And people don't always understand that. They may not have been explained that before. It may have just been no gloves in the hallway. Let's understand the why behind it. And you watch that light bulb go off over their head and it clicks. And 9 times out of 10, you're never going to see them in the hall with gloves again because they know why we don't do it and why it's important and why that's a problem. So make sure you're teaching them the reasons that we do things and not just do it this way, because it will go so much further and you'll have a much better educated staff and you'll have a much more committed staff because they understand the goals and it's not just arbitrary to them.
Not everybody have the same learning capacity. Some people it's better in a smaller group. Sometimes it's better one-on-one. And just listening to like a seminar or listening to the administrator talk over everybody, their attention span may not even be there. So remember, you have to have as a leader a different approach to learning mechanisms, because not everything is just straight, oh, well, I did an in-service with you. Well, I did this paper in-service with you. Or I wrote out an in-service, put it in a staffing book. Let me tell you some of the techniques some people do in nursing homes. I wrote out an in-service, put it in a staffing book. They never even talk to that person. It just says sign it for the 10 to 6 shift. I guarantee you that's why they say they didn't know. Comprehension is very different from just reading. So please, 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 as an administrator, know there are different learning capacity. I don't care how a person appears to you or how a person can, even a person with dementia can fool you. They can hear the same thing. Oh, soft blue bed. Like, oh, their memory score is very good. Of course, because they get asked that every quarter, right? But that does not mean that their memory score is actually a 6, 10 and below. So I just want you to know that there are different learning styles and different learning mechanisms.
Don't be afraid to do things to help increase their learning ability. I've been in a nursing home where on Tuesday nights in the conference room there was an English as a second language class, and an instructor came in and taught because we had a large immigrant community, and a lot of them didn't have English as their primary language, and so we set up a class, and the ones who were interested and wanted to came. I mean, it didn't cost anybody anything. There was no penalty if you didn't go, but the ones who wanted to went, and they, got extra help with English as their second language. I've had one place where we had somebody come in and help with reading comprehension and just basic understanding. That pays dividends in the long run because you're investing in your workforce and you're showing them that you care and that you want to help them achieve something that they're struggling with. I may tell you something, but you may learn it better by seeing it. Maybe it's my fault that you're not able to learn this the way I want you to. So don't always assume it's that person's problem. It might be your problem as well. There's a few things that you can do to manage turnover. A lot of the stuff that we've talked about already in terms of a human touch, compassion, being accessible to the people that you work with, all that kind of stuff definitely helps. It helps your staff to have a sense of family and community when they come to work. They don't want to leave their friends. They don't want to leave the coworkers that they have. They don't want to leave the manager that cares about them, that supports them and helps them achieve their dreams. But also, you want folks to feel like they have a sense of ownership in your building. They are not just somebody who comes to work for 8 hours, does a task, and leaves. They are a part of the bigger system. So if you can get folks involved in committees, in safety, QA, any kind of QA project that you're working on, let them do that. If they come to you with a problem, help them to be part of the solution. Let them tell you what they think might work better so that they have ownership in the solution. That way, they're much more likely to feel valued. They're much less likely to want to leave because they've helped create this program that solved their own problem. And a lot of leaders don't do that. But if you do, you're going to have these employees that want to stay and stay and stay because you help them to be better. You allow them to help solve the problems, and they get to buy in on the front end of the solution because they helped create it. Be flexible, be approachable. Let them know that you're always there to listen, that you care about them. I am not afraid to play on people's emotions. If they are super attached to one resident and you can do it, put them in a situation where they're assigned to that resident. Let them have that family connection so they don't want to leave, so they feel connected to the residents. Do what works best for everybody involved. The residents are going to get better care if their favorite CNA is the one caring for them. The CNA, if that's their favorite resident, they're going to feel connected. They're not going to want to leave them because there's an emotional bond. And it's the same thing if you can create those kind of situations among coworkers. Do team building activities that are meaningful and not just something that you pulled out of a book. Customize it to your building and what the people who work there enjoy and what resonates with them. You may have to put out a survey, just a quick paper survey on your employees. What kind of activities do you enjoy? What's your favorite hobby? What snacks do you like to eat? So that you can tailor these activities to what works for them and what is meaningful to them. And once you do that, you'll find that you have staff that stays. You'll find that you have staff that is welcoming to new employees, because sometimes if we don't have that sense of family or that sense of community, we tend to cannibalize our new hires. They don't know what they're doing. They're too slow, so I'm just going to ignore them, or I'm not going to help them. But if you build that sense of family and that sense of, we watched you grow from the time you started here, why don't you turn around and pay that back and watch somebody else grow and help them to grow? Once you build that community and that culture, people want to stay. And then people in the community hear about that. They want to come work for you because that's the place that helped my friend, go to school and get her nursing license. When she graduated, they guaranteed her a job and she didn't have to worry. She knew that she was going to be able to use her degree and make more money, and they promised her that, and they upheld that. Build that community of trust, build that community of appreciating everybody and celebrating what makes them special.
At Nexion, we have a system where it inputs surveys where they can do it anonymous. For turnover, sometimes it happens within the first 30 days of hire. So that survey automatically pushes out with our system, Health Source. And as the administrator, you want to be sure you're reading those things because you want to know if they're having issues from the start. Sometimes it's something very simple. One person wanted the vending machines to be back in the building. That was something simple. We did that. Or one person wanted a lock on the break room door. It was like, that's my only place to keep my stuff. So just imagine as an administrator and you wasn't listening to those things. They're going to feel like they can't come to you about other things too as well. So you want to be able to get those things. Now, some people, they want a $30 an hour raise. Now, we know we can't do that. But if you could do something, what would you do? You're listening to them, you're acknowledging that you're listening to them, and you're acting upon those things and following up with them. Hey, I put a lock on the break room door. Now you guys have a lock. You have a keypad entry. They will be more prone to coming to you and talking with you and saying, oh, this is a place that I want to be at. Another thing is recognition. We do have a system where we know when their birthdays are. Being able to say happy birthday, whether it's via email, via text. Sometimes I'll even give them something. I try to do it across the board because you don't want to just show favoritism with one person, but you try to do it across the board, maybe have birthday months. There's different things that you can do to say, hey, I recognize you, I value you. And when they see that, it may be something small, but when they see that turnover will decrease in your building. Once a week, I sometimes have my managers, this is before COVID, and now we're starting to back up again. We have a quality round. We go in and we clean rooms. When they see that, we're all out cleaning rooms, they're like, oh, okay, thank you. Showing that servant leadership sometimes will really, really go a long way. And when they see that and they have that sense of belongingness and they feel a part of the family, they will definitely have a sense of loyalty to the building and the team that's around them.
One of the things that I try to drill into people is that we are human and we are going to make mistakes. It's inevitable. And almost every mistake that we're going to make is fixable. So let's talk about it. Let's not be afraid of it. Let's own the mistake and let's correct it and let's learn from it. At the end of the day, we are all people. And you are allowed to make mistakes. Nobody's going to jump up and down and yell at you. Nobody's going to call you names, nothing like that. But you just have to create that environment where people can bring the mistakes to you. If they know that you understand that everybody makes mistakes and that we will fix it and we'll fix it together and we'll learn from it, people are much more inclined to want to work there, want to work with you specifically because they're going to see you as a good leader and a good manager because you allow them to make the mistake, not get mad at them, not put them necessarily in trouble, not hinder their career or fire them. But hey, let's talk about it. Why did this happen? What can we do to fix it? Whether that's calling the family and apologizing, owning our mistake, which we should always do, and moving forward.
As an administrator, you want to know your data. So just like you know your census, you want to know your staff retention percentage and your staff retention turnover and other data, amongst other data like your QMs and things of that nature. But you do want to know those things. The only way for you to know if there is a concern is for you to know the actual factual data. You don't want to just have your goals and not actually have a benchmark, some type of data to say you are effectively doing these things. Because if your data is the same, then you may need to try something different. But if you don't know your data at all, then you won't be able to effectively put things in place to see if they adequately measure up. As an administrator, you are doing things, and then celebrate with your staff. Once you hit that goal for the year or a quarter or a month, it depends on how you want to do it. You want to make sure that you can say, even on your resume, this is what I was able to do. Not saying, oh, I was able to decrease turnover. No, and let me tell you, on your resume, you want to be able to say, my turnover rate was at XYZ, and I decreased it from this way. That's the only measurement that people can, like, if you're interviewing other administrators and you're trying to see what are their benefits, and they're just giving you just words, and you're like, anybody can just tell you anything. But when you know that data, you can't dispute that. So I'm talking to you all as future administrators. When you get in their resume together, when you become that AIT, you want to be an aid in decreasing data or increasing your retention. Be data driven so that you can see, as a person in other industries can see what has worked, because you are judged on your measurements in your facility through different entities. So I just want to encourage you all to make sure that you are knowing your data, because sometimes we don't realize how important that is.
This job is hard. It can get very stressful and it can be very taxing. So make sure that you take time to step back, take a breath, take your vacations. Don't let your vacation time pile up and just max out. Make sure you take time for yourself. Lean on your peers. You're not going to know everything. You're not going to feel comfortable 100% for a couple of years, I would guess. And don't sell yourself short. You know what you're doing. You know how to access your resources, and you don't have to be everything to everybody. You just have to know where to find the answers and how to effectively apply them.